welcome into the Strike Zone here on 104.5 The Zone and Zone TV. I am Joe Hunk. You can follow me on Twitter at Joe Hunk, and I'm broadcasting live just like we do every single Thursday from First Horizon Park. We've got super regionals going on. We've got the Braves coming back on the Mets multiple times in the past couple of days. Braves and Mets right now are going on. Every bit of that is some things that we're going to be getting into here on the Strike Zone on this Thursday night. But we start off with this image directly behind me because if you're looking at it, I say every single Thursday we're live from First Horizon Park. Now, when the Sounds are in town, we're normally on the concourse, we're in the outfield, we're up on one of these decks, something like that, just broadcasting live as the game is going on. You can literally hear it and can't see it. MILB, if you're listening and or watching, you can't see it. But you can hear the game and the atmosphere and all that behind us. But if the team's on the road, the way they have been for the past couple of weeks, we broadcast from the suites here at First Horizon Park. Tonight, we are in Suite 7. I'm saying that specifically for anybody that's coming to First Horizon Park over the course of the next 2 weeks. If you get Suite 7, you're going to have this picture, this mural directly behind me. It's not a mural, it's a picture, okay? And this picture, if you don't know, is Sulphurdale Park. Now, for people that don't know the history of First Horizon Park and the history of baseball in Nashville, we talk a lot about Sulphurdale and the history of the city because if there was a professional baseball team before the Sounds in the city of Nashville, they played at this ballpark. That's directly behind me right now that you can see on Zone TV. This ballpark sat right where First Horizon Park is. In fact, before we got going, Colin Perry, who is an amazing guy here at the Nashville Sounds, he sets everything up for us. Him and I were discussing the layout of where Sulphurdale's home plate was as compared to First Horizon. And so we're looking at it in a way of they were not virtually on top of each other, but whenever you're walking this concourse and you're walking the area of First Horizon Park, you were on the grounds of Sulphurdale. Now, what makes this extremely interesting is the outfield that I'm pointing at on Zone TV right now. This outfield that you're seeing, and again, if you're watching on Zone TV, this is going to be a visual thing. Right here, this thing, okay? This is what I'm about to talk about, is that part of the stadium. Sorry if you're listening on the podcast, that was kind of a visual thing, but hey, if you want to watch it, you can go to our Twitter feed, you can go to YouTube, you can go to Facebook, you can go to all of that. That part of Sulphurdale is what gets talked about whenever you talk about the uniqueness of the stadium. Because even in this picture that I'm pointing at, you cannot see how unique the stadium was. Now, in 2023, 1995, heck, 1965, there's no way on earth that this uniqueness of Sulphurdale would be allowed. And what I'm talking about, if you've never seen it or you don't know about it, there is a man that is standing almost directly up against the wall, the outfield wall, the right field outfield wall. You can see in this picture, there's a man standing there. Now, the outfield wall at Sulphurdale was only 262 feet away from home plate. Now, why is that unique? That man that is standing is 22 and a half feet above the first baseman that I'm now pointing at on Zone TV. The right fielder is 22 and a half feet above the first baseman. That was what was so unique about Sulphurdale. It was flat land. The whole field was like a regular baseball field until you got about halfway into right field, and then it gradually went up at like a 45-degree angle until it was 22 and a half feet high, and then that's where the wall was. So that was the uniqueness of it, is if you were an outfielder playing in right field, the strategy became you would stand at the wall like the outfielder is doing in this picture directly behind me. And when a ball was hit in front of you, you would run down the hill, talking about a 75-degree angle. In fact, Heck, I will just go ahead and say that where we're standing right now in the suite at First Horizon Park, we'll just say roughly is about 20 feet above home plate. So if you're ever here and you're in the suites, when you walk out into the chairs so that you can watch the game, think about trying to go at a 45-degree angle directly down to catch a fly ball coming at you. That is what right fielders dealt with when they were playing at Sulphur Dell back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. And so that wall was only 262 feet. The left field wall was 320-something feet away from home plate. There was a scoreboard that was like 340 feet away that was in left center field. The uniqueness of the dimensions of Sulphur Dell, absolutely crazy. And here in Suite 7, you can see this picture and you can just see about how crazy it was. This wasn't just a ballpark that just some random players played at. Babe Ruth played here. Obviously, Negro League teams came through, the Southern Negro Leagues, obviously parenting up into the majors and the National League or the Negro Leagues and the American Leagues. All of those players, they would eventually come and play through Nashville. So they played on Sulphur Dell. So that's the history of the field in the ballpark. So if you ever get Suite 7 here at First Horizon Park, look at this picture and just think about the fact that that right fielder is 22 and a half feet above the first baseman trying to play in a baseball game and running up and down that hill. Some players like to stand at the top of the hill and run down. Some like to stand at the bottom of the hill and run up. And again, we're talking about how the uniqueness of the stadium is. There's a ball that could be hit off that right field wall. If it hits the hill, it's rolling all the way back down. So if an outfielder misses it, it hits the wall. That ball is going straight down all the way back to second base or first base. Why am I talking a lot about dimensions and the uniqueness of this stadium? That's because for the last 4 or 5 days, all I have focused on is baseball stadium dimensions because of what's about to happen this weekend and the super regionals, because we're down to 16 teams, 8 different sites. You have 2 series that are going to be SEC teams versus SEC teams. You have South Carolina taking on Florida. You have LSU and Kentucky. Then you also have Alabama going to get killed by Wake Forest. I'm just going to be honest with you. Alabama going to get killed by Wake Forest. You have Tennessee, and they're going to be going to Southern Miss. Yes, it's dumb. We understand it's dumb. And trust me, it's not a good draw for Tennessee. And we'll talk more about it as the day goes along and as the show goes along. But those are the teams that are remaining in the College World Series or remaining in the Super Regionals to go. You also have Oregon and Oral Roberts. Oral Roberts is the only 4 seed still remaining in the tournament. Indiana State and TCU. If you have not heard the story about Indiana State and TCU, beautiful story. And I mean beautiful. It's sad for Indiana State because they make the Super Regionals, but having to move the Super Regionals to TCU's campus because at Indiana State, they're hosting the Special Olympics for Special Olympics Indiana. So they didn't have the hotel space to hold all the fans that would be coming for the baseball game as well for the Special Olympics. So what happened is they moved the series to TCU's campus, and as a thank you, TCU fans have donated thousands of dollars to the Special Olympics of Indiana just to say thank you because they understand the circumstances. So that's the coolness of what is happening, at least some of those. And yes, you have Duke and Virginia is the other 2 teams that are there. So those are the 16 teams. What we're going to focus on for the next little bit is going to be the teams that are going to be connected to the Tennessee Vols, because the way the bracket still works out is even though the 8 teams that win these super regionals still advance to the College World Series, they're still not going to all be playing each other. You still have 2 separate brackets, and those separate brackets will go in and they will continue to face everybody in the separate brackets until they get to the College World Series finals, which is a best of 3. So last week we talked about, I believe that the College World Series championship is the most difficult championship in sports to win. Because what happens, You have to win the regional, which we all saw how difficult that was over the past weekend. You then have to go win the super regional, which is another double elimination tournament. It's best 2 out of 3 because you're only playing one team. If you win the super regional, you then have to go into another format that is exactly like what you just played in the regionals, where you have 4 teams all playing against each other. 4 teams in bracket 1, 4 teams in bracket 2. That's a double elimination tournament. You make it through that, you're playing in the College World Series Finals, which is another best of 3 / double elimination tournament. So when you see the way the bracket is made out, you don't have to worry about Florida, South Carolina, Duke, Virginia, Oregon, Oral Roberts, Indiana State, or TCU if you are a Tennessee fan, because you won't have to see any of those teams unless you make it to the College World Series Finals, where you're only going to have to see one of those 8. The teams that you do need to pay attention to is going to be LSU, Kentucky specifically, because that's who you're going to play first in Omaha if Tennessee gets past Southern Miss. You have Texas and Stanford, which will be in your bracket. One of those 2 teams will be in that bracket in Omaha, as will the winner of Alabama and Wake Forest. I'll just say Wake Forest is going to be in that bracket as well. And it's up to you if you want to consider Texas a SEC team yet or not. Fully up to you. So if you're a Tennessee fan, the one series that you need to be paying attention to most is going to be Kentucky LSU. This is not as clear-cut as you would potentially think, mainly because Tennessee, or I should say LSU and Kentucky, already played each other earlier this year, and Kentucky not only won, they handled LSU at times. So don't automatically think that because LSU has arguably the best offense in college baseball that they're going to run over Kentucky. Playing a team, because they've already played each other 3 times, that's what's going to make this a little bit more difficult. The unique thing about Kentucky and LSU, they're both dumb. And I don't mean dumb as in they don't know what they're doing, or they don't understand, or they're just out there and they don't grasp what's happening. They're dumb because both of those teams, Kentucky and LSU, are top 5 in the nation in being hit by pitches. Kentucky has been hit by a pitch 130 times this season. Kentucky has a player named Jackson Gray who has been hit 25 times. It's the 6th most in college baseball. LSU has been hit 126 times. Guys, getting hit by a batter or getting hit by a ball sucks. It's horrible. It doesn't matter if it's your elbow, your back, your shoulder, your head, your leg, your butt, your thigh. It doesn't matter. It's first off, it sucks because you're up and you're ready to hit. And then you get hit by the ball. And yes, you get your base. Yes, it happens. It helps your on base percentage, but it also takes away an at bat. Not to mention the whole don't rub it thing. Okay. Yes, you don't rub it. But if you haven't paid attention to what pitchers in 2023 throw like, you're most likely getting something that's in the upper 90s, 96, 97, 98, in the elbow, in the ribs, in the hand. God help you if you get hit in the head with it. In the back, it doesn't matter. You're going to feel it, and it sucks. I hated getting hit, and I think the most I ever got hit in a season was like 5 times. And that was out of 50 games. I got hit 5 times. Jackson Gray's been hit 25 times. Why on earth do you want to get hit 25 times? I mean, I understand it can be part of your strategy. And he has 19 stolen bases, so he absolutely uses it. But why do you want to get hit 25 times? I didn't want to get hit once, not because I'm a wimp, just because it's annoying and because I wanted to hit. Don't take the at bat away from me. Jackson Gray's got hit 25 times. Yes, he has 19 stolen bases, but also the thing is the man's almost batting .350. He's got 6 triples this season. He's one of the top 5 players in all of college baseball in triples. So yes, he has speed. Yes, he wants to get on the base, but 25 times of getting hit, And how on earth, as a team, do you get hit 130 times? How close are you standing to the home plate to get hit that much? In LSU, you're the exact same way. 126 times you've been hit? That's at least 2 or 3 times a game. If you're a bettor, FanDuel, FanDuel.com/Hunk, or, just let you know, just in case you need it. If there is a stat that FanDuel puts out this weekend about over-unders on hit by pitches, just know Kentucky and LSU, if the over-under is 4, just go ahead and take the over, because that's what happens in these games. And what's bad is these are two amazing teams. Kentucky likes to use their speed a little bit more than what LSU does. But these are two teams that either one of them can and obviously make it to the College World Series. But the part about this is LSU does it differently than what Kentucky does. Kentucky does rely on getting on base. They have multiple hitters that are batting like 324, 325, 348. You have somebody named Jace Felker, who's number 20, or no, I'm sorry, he's number 2 for Kentucky. He already has 20 stolen bases this year. The thing is, he also is great at a lost art called sacrifice bunting. If a man is on base, he will be the one that moves him over. He's already done that 11 times this season. You have one of the players for Kentucky, his name is Ryan Waldschmidt. God, I know I probably butchered that, but you'll trust me, when you see him this weekend, you'll understand. He already has 17 stolen bases. Kentucky relies on speed. They rely on getting on base, obviously by getting hit, and then they use their speed to get around, and they rely on a contact hit to be able to get 2 or 3 runners in at one point in time. LSU is going to do it differently. LSU is number 3 in the nation in home runs. They're number 5 in the nation in RBIs. They rely on the big hit. And they have to. They have 6 different players that have OPSs over 1,000. The problem is, outside of their starter, Paul Skeens, outside of him, their pitching is awful. I've talked to some LSU fans, and basically the whole concept is the first team to 10 is going to win. And it sounds crazy to say, well, yeah, of course, if you score 10 runs, you're going to win. No, it's because you have to score 10 runs. LSU's offense has to score 8, 9, 10 runs to win their ball games. They have to get that. They have lost games this season where they have scored 13 runs. LSU lost to Mississippi State 13-14 in extra innings because of their pitching. If I'm scoring 13 runs and I'm on offense, I swear to our Heavenly Father, you better be making your pitches if you're on the mound. I'm not putting up 13, 14, and 15 runs to lose a ball game because you can't pitch and because you're giving up bombs and you're just getting raked on the mound and giving up all these hits. You're nuh-uh. Because our offense is doing what we're supposed to. You need to do your job. LSU's pitching, that's their biggest weakness. Get past their ace on Friday and then worry about their bullpen and their game 2 and game 3 starter. All you have to do is survive. You saw that strategy with Tennessee against Clemson. Now, it also took almost to the 9th inning for their ace to get out. Actually, it was the 9th inning for their ace to leave. But once you got past Clemson's ace, totally different ball team. And you saw that against Clemson. You saw it the second time that Tennessee played Clemson. LSU's the exact same way. Fantastic offense. Rely on the bomb. Tommy White, Dylan Cruz, those guys can mash. Dylan Cruz is going to be the number 1 overall draft pick when the draft takes place here in a few weeks. He is going to be the number 1 overall draft pick. So if you want to see a lot of talent, you're going to want to watch LSU and Kentucky play. Plus, if you are a Vol fan, then you absolutely want to pay attention to this because that is going to be the team that if Tennessee gets past Southern Miss, that is going to be the team that you have to play the first game against in Omaha. Potentially a second or third or how, whatever the game is, depending on how it goes. Because again, 2 brackets, 2 regionals going out against each other. It's just all in one place in Omaha. If you look at the schedule, bracket 1, all the games start on the 9th. Bracket 2, all the games start on the 10th. So bracket 1, you're looking at all those games that are going to be starting tomorrow. And bracket 1 is going to be Duke, Virginia, TCU, Indiana State, Oral Roberts in Oregon, South Carolina, and Florida. That's bracket 1/bracket A. And then Tennessee, LSU, Kentucky, Southern Miss, Wake Forest, and Alabama, Stanford, and Texas are all in the other bracket. They're going to be starting on Saturday. Okay, so that's why don't pay attention to what's happening tomorrow. You can enjoy it, but you don't have to really pay attention to these teams as thinking about the potential of Tennessee making it to the College World Series and the championship. There's one of those 8 teams that Tennessee would have to face. You don't have to face multiple ones. Don't worry about those if you're trying to look at the path for Tennessee to get to the national championship. Now, Tennessee themselves, I don't want to use the phrase screwed, but they got screwed, okay? You heard CeeLo talk about this on 3HL, about the committee potentially being tired of Vitello, about the committee wanting to put it in Southern Miss because of the atmosphere in Knoxville. It was all these negatives towards Tennessee about everything that's taken place the past 2 seasons in the Super Regionals. And I don't understand the whole idea of wanting to go away from an amazing crowd, because the way that college baseball thrives is on the emotion and the excitement. Doesn't matter what the umpires want to do, because there's a lot of umpires over the course of the, so many games that happened last weekend that made really bad decisions and threw players out for stupid things. Yes, I know it helped Tennessee, but still, Clemson's player did not deserve to get thrown out. If you were watching Coastal Carolina play, Coastal Carolina and Indiana State are playing. Coastal Carolina, a batter for them, hits a bomb. I mean, it's like Denton's bomb. I mean, it was a shot. You knew it right off the bat. He seriously hits the ball and just starts jumping up and down in excitement and throws the bat down and starts running because he's so fired up that he just hit, I believe it was a go-ahead home run. The umpire called time and gave both teams warnings saying they need to calm down. Bro, you are in the regional finals and you just took the lead with a go-ahead 3-run homer? Yeah, I'm jumping up and down. He didn't say anything to anybody's face. He didn't trash talk. I'm going to assume he probably cussed, but hey, it's baseball. It doesn't matter, and you shouldn't have mics on the field anyway. He didn't do anything towards an Indiana State player. There was no reason for him to get any warnings whatsoever. You saw players ejected last week for stupid reasons. You shouldn't have it happen this week, because not saying that it's going to cost a team an opportunity to go to Omaha, but it could cost you an important player. Just ask Clemson. Again, I know it benefited Tennessee, but it was a bad, bad look. Why do you want to go away from the emotion and the excitement of Knoxville? You can look at RPI. You can look at wins against top 25 teams. You can look at how they've done so far. You can look at every bit of that. You can look at seeding. I know that were number 2s. You can go through every sort of metric that you want to. Tennessee was better statistically in every metric when it comes to playing Southern Miss. The game should be happening in Knoxville. It's not that the game isn't happening in Knoxville that is going to be a big issue for Tennessee. The biggest issue for Tennessee is going to be where they're playing. Because not just that they're playing in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, which is basically just a horrible, horrible place. It just is. It's really bad. If you've listened to 3HL, you kind of already know how I feel. Not just that, but the weather, the atmosphere in the stadium itself, those 3 things are all going to go against Tennessee. Now, when I talk about weather, it's supposed to be raining off and on the entire weekend. You're going to have stops and starts, potentially, unless they start the game in a window. If the stop and start is long enough, you can lose one of your pitchers Dolander, Lindsey, not Burns, because Burns should be staying in the bullpens even after what he did the other night against Clemson. You see these pitchers. Tennessee has the deepest bullpen and the deepest pitching staff in college baseball. They're going to need every single one of those pitchers this weekend if the weather does what it's supposed to do. Because if you get a 30-minute window, okay, you're most likely going to be able to keep your ace in the game. But if you're talking about a window of an hour to 2 hours, it's going to be harder for Vitello to send his ace or to send his starting pitcher back into the game if he was pitching to begin with because of the delay in pitches. It's not healthy for the arm. It's not healthy for the pitcher. You got to go against that. Unless there's some way that you can stay loose during that period of time and you can have the pitcher throwing periodically underneath the stadium and the bullpen, if they have one underneath the stadium or if they have a covered batting cage that he can throw in, something potentially, but it's most likely going to take your starter away. Then you start getting into the bullpen. Yes, Tennessee has a very deep bullpen, but it also doesn't mean that once you start getting to the bottom part of that bullpen, they're not going to struggle. That's the one thing that you have to deal with when the weather comes into play. The other thing you're going to have to deal with when the weather comes into play, I put this under atmosphere, but I guess you can also say it comes in weather as well. If you're dealing with rain off and on in the middle of June in Mississippi, yes, I said it like that just because it's disgusting. In Mississippi, home runs don't fly like that. The ball is heavier. You cannot rely on a home run. That's the one thing that does help Tennessee. We saw it against Clemson. The Denton home run, mashed. Denton home run would have been out of every ballpark in America, and Japan, and South Korea. Probably some of them if you combine them. But you cannot rely on the home run when you're talking about heavy atmosphere, rain, humidity. The ball becomes heavy. Tennessee's offense relies on home runs. Even the hit that got Tennessee the win against Clemson, deep ball, in the gap, line drive. Those are the hits. That hit is what you're going to need 50 of this weekend against Southern Miss because of the weather that you're going to be facing. You cannot rely on somebody to come up with the bases loaded and hit a grand slam and boom, you get 4 runs. What you're going to need to rely on is a runner on first and second, somebody hit a ground ball down the third baseline that gets your runners in. Somebody hit a ground ball down the right field line and get the runners in. That's what you're going to need to rely on if you're Tennessee this weekend. That's not something that they do a lot because they do rely on the ball that gets hit up against the fence in the gap. The ball's not going to travel if the weather's what it's supposed to be while they're in Hattiesburg. Now, pitching-wise for Southern Miss, bro, they just got one good pitcher. His name's Tanner Hall. And if you get past Tanner Hall, runs galore, okay? If for some reason Tennessee doesn't rely on the home run and you're starting to hear what we call station to station or replace the batter, which means – hey, guys at second, swap places with him, replace him out at second base, meaning he comes home, scores, you go to second base. Unless you're relying on that. Tennessee gets past Tanner Hall. He almost has a sub-2 ERA. He has like a 2.08 ERA. He's only lost 3 games this season, and he struck out almost 120 different guys this season. He's going to be the starter on Saturday against Tennessee. Opponents are only batting .202 against him. You are going to most likely have a low-scoring game for majority of this depending on how far Tanner Hall pitches. If he goes 7 or 8, if you can get 3 runs off Tanner Hall, you should be golden. I almost say Gucci, but that just sounded dumb. That's what you have to rely on. Now, if you get into this situation, then you're going to go up against Justin Storm, who's their closer, sub-3 ERA. He has 94 strikeouts and he has 69 strikeouts in 41 innings pitched, flamethrower. Yes, I know what Tennessee did against Clemson, but Tennessee is going to have to go into Hattiesburg with a different mindset. They're just going to have to. If the weather is as bad as it is, you are going to have to rely on getting hits, not getting home runs. The home runs are not going to come if the weather is the way it's supposed to be. You will have to play station to station. You will have to rely on an inning that involves you putting 6 and 7 guys to the plate, and all you're doing is just getting doubles the entire time. That's what you're going to have to rely on if you're Tennessee. The other part that plays into this, which goes back to why I knew so much about Sulphur Dale at the beginning of the show, you're also playing in the biggest stadium that is left in the NCAA tournament outside of playing at TD Ameritrade in Omaha. The only stadium that is bigger of the 16 teams is Indiana State. And at the beginning, we talked to you about how Indiana State and TCU and the agreement that had to come into place and how that series is taking place at TCU and not Indiana State. That's the other part of this. So not only is the atmosphere / weather not going to be playing into Tennessee's side if they're going to rely on the home runs, the other thing that's going to be playing into effect is you're hitting at a ballpark that is massive. 340 down the lines, 400 in center field. The only reason why Indiana State's park is bigger is because it's 402 in center field. So literally 2 feet difference. 2 feet separate you from playing in what would have been the second biggest park that is left in there. But because Indiana State had to move, Tennessee's going to the biggest stadium. That's going to be a major problem. Matter of fact, I'm doing this on the fly as I'm thinking right now. The Hoover Met, which is something we talked about a lot, about the distance, how the stadium is, left field line, right field line, how that's looking. Left field line at the Hoover Met, 340. Right field line, 340. Center field, 405. You're playing in a park that is just a little smaller than what the Hoover Met is. That's not a ballpark that Tennessee played well in this time. So you're going to need that good pitching because you're going to need these games to be lower scoring because of how Tennessee plays. If I'm wrong, I will totally admit next week that I'm wrong. I'll admit on 3HL that I was wrong. I'll admit on the Strike Zone next Thursday night that I was wrong. They're not going to be relying on the home runs if it is going to be raining as much as it should be. And if the humidity is what it's going to be and the ball is as heavy as it's most likely going to be, and I don't mean heavy as in the waterlog, because with the way baseball is now, saying heavy doesn't mean, oh, well, it's wet. Of course it's going to be heavy. No. If a ball gets wet in college baseball now, they throw it off to the side, they bring a new baseball in. Heavy means that the way that the atmosphere, the weather, which probably are the same thing, but I keep putting them as separate, and the way the pitchers are throwing, you don't hit the ball well. You don't get the contact that you normally do. And the ball doesn't travel as far as it normally would. Comparison? Right field line right here at First Horizon Park. I'm staring directly down the right field line as I'm broadcasting tonight from Suite 7. Right field line at First Horizon is 310 feet. 340 feet means that you are going to be at the bandbox, which is where the wall would be. You take away the first 3 rows of First Horizon behind the right field wall. That is what you're talking about with Southern Miss this weekend. It's a massive ballpark. Heavy ball, bad weather, huge ballpark. It's not going to work. Tennessee has got to play station to station. They have got to rely on hit, not hit, home run. You're going to have to put runners in and crossing the plate on a regular hit outside of putting one outside the park. Direct opposite is going to be happening in Winston-Salem because I think Wake Forest plays at a Little League field. I'm totally shocked that they're not playing at the Little League World Series. The dimensions of the stadium that Wake Forest plays at is laughable. Because Wake Forest is the number 1 team in baseball. They have an absolute amazing pitching staff. Not going to say it's better than Tennessee's because it's not as deep as what Tennessee's is, but they have 2 good pitchers, maybe even 3. They have multiple pitchers that have struck out over 100 guys so far this year. So pitching-wise, they're great. But then when you start looking at their numbers, you have a guy named Nick Kurtz who has 23 home runs this year. You have a guy named Brock Wilken, has 27 home runs. You have 4 different players for Wake Forest that's batting over 350. Hands down the most in all the teams in college baseball that are remaining. But when you look at Wake Forest field, and I know that not a lot of people have paid attention to Wake Forest's field throughout your life because it's Wake Forest. We don't pay attention to them unless it was Tim Duncan playing. I just knocked something over. Down the lines, it is ridiculous. It is 300 and 310 down the lines at Wake Forest. It's like 390 to center field. They play at a tiny ballpark. No wonder they have 27 home runs and 23 home runs. Not to mention the wall itself is so crazy. That's the cool thing about baseball, right? Like every single ballpark is different. It's not uniform. Every ballpark is not 350 feet or 340 feet down the right and left field line, 400 to center field, curved wall. That's not the case. It's not like football or basketball or hockey where every single rink, court, and field are the same. Baseball, you have variables. You have a green monster. You have a brick wall with grass or an ivy on it. You have brick. You have padding. You have one wall that's 21 feet tall. You have one wall that's 8 feet tall. You've got fencing. They're all different. Some have curves. Some don't. Some used to be 320 feet down the line, and they decided to back it up and add another wall to it to make it 310 or 320. I'm looking at you, Baltimore. Like you have all these different variables. When you watch Wake Forest play this weekend, look at their outfield wall. It's got like jagged edges. It's weird. Not only is it short down the lines, it's weird. So perfect example. And I don't even know if you can really even see this. You can't. But over here, you have the scoreboard that I was telling you about at the very beginning of the show. And the scoreboard is in play, but it's also close. It's like 345 feet away from home plate. To the left of that scoreboard is a wall that goes directly back. Just directly back. And it goes to the rest of the wall that was 340. Wake Forest has multiple walls like that. They have a wall that the wall not only starts at 310. This is another visual for Zone TV people. Sorry, podcast people. They have a wall that goes, and then once it gets to about left center and right center, it has a jagged wall that goes outward. Then it goes once again, and it meets once again at a flat wall in center field. The design is so unique and so weird, but at the same time, it's so hitter-friendly. It's the direct opposite of what Lindsey Nelson is. Or I should say the direct opposite of Southern Miss. It's kind of like Lindsey Nelson because it is so hitter-friendly that you see why they have so many home runs. And somehow, in baseball history, Wake Forest has not been good in baseball. The last time that Wake Forest actually won the College World Series was 1955. That's a long time. They've made an appearance to Omaha, but not many. And the weirdness about Wake Forest is that in 1955, college baseball looked very different. Now, 1955 in sports was very different. I mean, look at football, basketball, and how everything else is. But the uniqueness of college baseball was unlike anything else in college sports, anything else in sports, period. Because the way that the College World Series and the NCAA baseball tournament worked was you had different regions, just kind of like you have now. Okay, they didn't call them that. They called them districts. And then each district had teams that traveled to it to play. What was unique about college baseball in 1955 when Wake Forest won the national championship, you could kind of decide who comes to your district. And so what I mean is you had some districts that just the host team invited another team. Arizona invited Texas A&M. Oklahoma invited Oklahoma A&M, which eventually became Oklahoma State. Colorado State invited Wyoming. Best of 3 series, winner goes to Omaha. Pretty cut and dry. But then you had other districts / regions where the host team would automatically be in the championship game, and 2 other teams would have to play each other in a best of 3 series to see who would go ahead and play the best of 3 against the host team. So like District 4, for instance, there's a school called Alma. Never heard of it. Don't know where it's located. Taking on a team, which we do know, Western Michigan. The winner of that went on to play Ohio State in a best of 3 series to see who goes to the championship. The same thing happened in Wake Forest in West Virginia, because Wake Forest and a school called Rollins played in a best of 3 series to see who would play West Virginia in the championship round to go to the College World Series. So those districts went a little bit deeper. You would have some districts that would bring 4 teams in, or have 4 teams total, bring in 3, and the winner of those 2 series in a solo game would play each other in another solo game to determine who went to the College World Series. This is so weird. Depending on which district you were in, that district got to choose what type of tournament you played. You had one district. Man, I'm setting them up for a bunch of jokes. You had one district in California. There's all the jokes. They invited 4 teams to play in a double elimination tournament, just like what we talk about with regionals now. But here was the kicker. The team that got through the 4 games, or the 3 other teams, then turned around and had to play USC for the championship in a best of 3 series to see who goes to Omaha. Southern Cal just sat back and watched. Fresno State, Willamette, never heard of them, San Jose State, Pepperdine, all traveled to Los Angeles to play at USC. Those 4 teams play each other in a double elimination tournament. The winner of that was Fresno State. Fresno State then turns around and they have to play California in Southern Cal in playing another best of 3 tournament. What? That's how each one of these districts were going. So when I say college baseball was different back in 1955, it was very different. Because you could have been like Oklahoma and Oklahoma A&M and just said, all right, cool, guys, you play us, winner goes to Omaha. Heck, just invite 3 other teams. All right, we'll play 1 game each. The winner of that game will play each other. You guys go to Omaha. Or you could do a double elimination tournament. Whatever. But to have 1 tournament and then the winner of that then comes and plays USC, who's been chilling for like 3 or 4 days. All right, you guys play. You just go ahead and come. That's how people determined who would make it to Omaha back in 1955. And that's the last time that Wake Forest was good. That's how long it has been. Wake Forest is amazing now. Alabama playing tremendously well. They honestly shouldn't have really struggled as much as they did. But now they have to play Wake Forest. Alabama fans are pissed because Alabama fans like to get mad. Oh, well, we shouldn't have been a 16 seed. Oh, we should have done this. Oh, your coach shouldn't have bet on games. Sorry. You're lucky you're a 16 seed. Because up until like the last 2 months of the season, or last month of the season, you were playing like crap. Auburn shouldn't have been a regional. I'm not even saying that as an Auburn fan. Auburn should not have hosted a regional. They were not good enough. I don't know why they hosted a regional. They did get hot the last 2 months of the season. They didn't deserve to host a regional. So they didn't deserve to advance. And they got Southern Miss, and they had plenty of opportunities to win these games, and they didn't even come close. Wake Forest should totally beat Alabama. I honestly think it could be a sweep. LSU Kentucky, to me, is probably the most interesting series of the entire weekend. Oral Roberts in Oregon is unique. Oral Roberts is a 4 seed. There have only been 2 4 seeds that have ever made it to the College World Series since it went to its format in 1999. One of those 4 seeds was Fresno State in 2008, and they ended up winning the whole thing. The other 4 seed was in 2012. That was Stony Brook. It was Stony Brook in 2012. They went in, lost 2 straight. They were eliminated. Oral Roberts tries to become the first 4 seed since 2012 to make it to the College World Series. And they're really good, obviously, but Oregon just has great offense. Just ask everybody at Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt missed an amazing opportunity. Vanderbilt should not have had any trouble against those teams that they faced this past weekend. They had better pitching. The problem was hitting didn't show up. And it didn't show up against a lot of teams that are very, very bad at pitching. Teams that you will see have multiple wins because they have to score 10 and 11 runs just to win a game by 2 runs. You will see scores this weekend that are going to be 12-9, and there's going to be a pitcher that gets a save. There's going to be over 20 runs scored in a ball game, and it's still going to be close. That's what you're going to see potentially this weekend. Virginia should get past Duke. They have one of the top 2 or 3 pitching off. Man, that was bad. Flip it, reverse it, rewind it. They're one of the best pitching teams in college baseball. Tennessee, Virginia, Vanderbilt was on that list. Wake Forest has a tremendous pitching staff. Those are what you're looking at. That's the biggest hope for Tennessee. I do think Tennessee can get past Southern Miss. I think they are going to have to change their offense. There's no way they can go in and rely on the home run. If Tennessee hits, we'll say 3 games, if they hit 5 home runs this weekend, if the weather is what it's supposed to be, if they hit 5 home runs, I would be very impressed. Heavy ball, massive stadium, doesn't bode well. You're going to have to rely on base hits, potentially small ball, which is not something Tennessee normally does. That's how they win. TCU, they are the fastest team still remaining in the NCAA tournament. I want to say they have 4 different players that have over 20 stolen bases this year. Trey Richardson, who had 3 home runs in one game against Arkansas, had another home run the next game. He has like 26 stolen bases, if I remember that correctly. 24 stolen bases in 27 attempts. They have players on their team. Austin Davis, 22 stolen bases. Cole Fortnelli, 20 stolen bases. Elijah Nunez, 19 stolen bases. Anthony Silva, 17 stolen bases. Braden Taylor, 14 stolen bases. And Braden Taylor also has 23 home runs. That is what you're looking at with TCU. TCU is a very dangerous baseball team. Don't have much pitching, but they're going to score runs. TCU will probably go to the College World Series, and TCU will be very dangerous at TD Ameritrade because of the style of baseball that they play. Hit and run, steal bases, get players on second and third, base hit, gets them in. That's how they play, and they are very good at it. Now, coming up next Thursday, we will be back. We will be back down on the concourse. Gwinnett is in town taking on the Sounds. That means that at some point in time during this series, potentially even twice, you're going to see Mike Soroka pitching for the Stripers because they are the Atlanta Braves affiliate. There's some really cool things that obviously the Sounds are going to be doing over the course of the next few days. Wednesday night is going to be your bucket hat night. The Tennessee bucket hats that we've talked about on 3HL, flip them, reverse them. They have Tennessee, and on the other side, they have the Sounds. Really cool bucket hat. They're going to be doing that on Wednesday. Thursday night's going to be a little bit different because Thursday night, which is when we're going to be broadcasting from First Horizon, normally it's their Throwback Thursday. They wear their jerseys from 1978. This week, they're going to be doing something different. They just dropped brand new jerseys earlier today. It's probably about 10, 11 o'clock. They dropped their 615 jerseys. The reason I'm talking about these jerseys is because after the game and actually leading into the game, the jerseys are also going to be up for auction. Every single cent, all of the proceeds for these 615 jerseys that are going to be auctioned off are going to go to the victim first, which if you don't know what that is to help with the Covenant School tragedy and the shootings and the families that are involved in that. It is a very important night here at First Horizon Park next Thursday when we're going to be out here. It is extremely important that if you want to donate, if you want to bid on these jerseys, whatever you want to do, you can go to the Nashville Sounds website and you can find the link and you can bid for your favorite players' jerseys. Can't vote or you can't bid for John Singleton because he's in the major leagues. Attaboy. Brewers had a player get put on the 10-day IL. John Singleton finally got invited back up to the big leagues, and I want him to stay because that man mashes for the Sounds, and I hope he does stay. So next Thursday, make sure you come out. Make sure you start getting those bids in. Make sure that you help that because not only do we have that, this isn't housekeeping because we're wrapping up the strike zone tonight, but we're going to be doing something cool over the next few days. Starting tomorrow, we are going to be giving you an opportunity to come to the ballpark on Father's Day. We're putting together a special Father's Day event for 104.5 The Zone Fathers. So what we're going to be doing is over the course of the next week, we're going to be giving away 4 packs of tickets on 3HL for Father's Day, and you can come and watch the Sounds and the Stripers. You can hang out in a suite. Beforehand, we're going to be hanging out at Third and Home. You can enjoy some amazing specials that Third and Home are going to have that are specifically for 104.5 The Zone and our dads. Dads, if you want to, if you're the winner, can bring whoever you want. You can bring your kids. You can bring the other dads that just want to get out of the house. You can bring your family. I'm bringing my family, my wife, my son, my daughter. Maybe a couple more of my family members are going to be coming as well to hang out with us here at First Horizon. But that's something that we're going to be doing. We're kicking it off tomorrow. Make sure that you're listening to 3HL because we're only going to be giving away 4 of these 4-packs. You could come hang out next Sunday with us at Third and Home as well as here at the stadium. We can watch the Stripers and Sounds. If you're a Braves fan, you can see some minor leaguers that are about to get called up to Atlanta. With the way the Braves call up players, it could be that week that they get called up. Don't know. We'll find out. But make sure that you pay attention on 3HL tomorrow afternoon starting at 3. Make sure that you continue listening all week next week if you want to get on those 4-pack of tickets that we're going to be giving away. Also, thank you so much for listening and for watching. No matter where you are, no matter what you're doing, I really appreciate it. I deeply appreciate you taking the time to always watch the Strike Zone, to hang out with me. I see you in the chat and talking about all the stuff that we've talked about tonight. Thank you so much. It does mean a ton to me that you hop in every single Thursday night when you're probably at home or you're probably with your family and you watch the Strike Zone. Thank you so much. So next Thursday, if you're out here at the ballpark, come say hello. Let's talk a little bit. Let's have some fun. I'll see you next Thursday, 7 o'clock, somewhere on the concourse. Stripers Sounds will be going. We will